Morning, folks. I'm Dave Canterbury with Self-Reliance Outfitters in the Pathfinder School, back down here at the Pathfinder Outdoor Classroom. We just finished up a 5-day trapping course, a modern trapping course, and I've cleaned everything up from that a little bit. I'm working on my trap line. I've been on the trap line this morning already doing checks, and I'm back in the classroom. What I wanted to do is shoot a video today on pathfinding as explained by Horace Kephart in his book, Woodcraft and Camping, and talk specifically about route sketching and using time as a measurement system. Before I start this video, what I'd like to do is I'd like to solicit you a little bit to donate to a GoFundMe for Blackie Thomas. I'm sure that a lot of you that watch my videos also watch Blackie's videos. He's been in the community probably as long as I have. He came to my first Pathfinder gathering, as a matter of fact. So we've been friends for 12, 14, 15 years. He's a really good woodsman, a really good guy. He has a lot of good content, and he suffered a mild stroke yesterday, and he's recovering from that now. And with that's going to be the incurrence of some medical bills. And in this lean time that we're in, his medical bills are probably going to be more than he can afford to pay right away. So a GoFundMe's been set up for him by a friend of his, and we've donated to it already ourselves to help offset some of his medical bills. So I would encourage you to go to that GoFundMe, and I'll put a link to that GoFundMe page in the description box of this video if you'd like to donate some money to Blackie Thomas's cause. Now, with that said, here at the Pathfinder School, we teach lots of things. We teach survival, we teach bushcraft, we teach woodsmanship, we teach navigation, we teach medicinal edible plants, ropes and rigging, wilderness first aid. Lots and lots of classes are taught here at the Pathfinder School almost on a bi-monthly basis year long. If you want to look at one of those classes or come to hands-on training, which definitely reduces your learning curve of trying to learn things off of video or learn things on your own by doing research and practice, you can eliminate a lot of that learning curve by coming to hands-on training with people who've already made all those mistakes. And you can go to selfrelianceoutfitters.com and go to the training tab and pull down survival training or any type of training you want. And you can choose from the list of training we offer and sign up for a class in 2025. Now, in Horace Kephart's book, Camping and Woodcraft, Chapter 3 speaks to pathfinding. And one of the things I'd like to talk to you about today is route sketching. And we've talked about different types of route sketching and making our own maps and the Paul method and all those types of things in the past. And most of what we do in navigation in this day and age has to do with pace counting as far as tracking distance. There are some advantages that time has in tracking time over tracking paces. And we'll talk about that in this video. So the 5 bullet points we're going to talk about really during this video with route sketching is time, controls and waypoints, simplistic azimuths, scale of your route sketch, and reference notes that go along with your route sketch. We'll cover all these 5 points as we go. Stay with me and we'll get started. All right, so first let's talk about what is a route sketch, right? A route sketch is basically just a self-made improvised map on a piece of paper of a route that you have traveled or a route that you frequently travel that you wish to give to somebody else possibly or to add to other route sketches so that you can develop a map of an area that you're operating in. And it may be that a map, a paper map that you have may not be accurate. And a lot of times when we teach navigation intensive out at school, we point things out on the map that are no longer accurate because features on that map may have changed or moved. Trails that are in the woods may not be on the map, especially if they're smaller foot trails, things like that, or even ATV trails may not be on the map. And so things change over time that make maps out of date. Real-time information from boots on the ground is going to be accurate to the day you did it. So a lot of times they'll be more accurate than a map itself for simple navigation over shorter distances. Okay, so first let's talk about tracking our distance walked or traveled with time instead of paces. Paces obviously are the way that we're most familiar with in this day and age, but we use time to track things every day, just not so much when we're doing land navigation. You know, if I ask you, how long does it take to get to the store? You might say, well, 10 minutes down the road, 15 minutes down. How long does it take to get to Indianapolis from where you're at? Well, it takes 4 hours. It's not how many miles it is. It's not the distance. It's generally time. So we use time day in and day out, and there's no reason we can't use that while we're walking. Most of us will walk at about the same pace most of the time. So if it takes me 10 minutes to walk to a certain point today, it's probably going to take me 10 minutes to walk to that point tomorrow. And there's no reason for me to count paces. Now, things that could change that are weather. Obviously, if we got 2 foot of snow versus dry ground, if you got 2 inches of rain versus dry ground, that may change the time it takes you to get somewhere, but it will still be fairly close unless it's a drastic change, okay? So seasonally, it won't change that much. And it also will give you a roundabout way to give someone else that route sketch, or give someone else the amount of time it may take them to walk there, give or take a couple minutes. It's not going to be perfectly accurate, but it's going to be just as accurate for sure as pace counting is, without worrying about counting paces, moving pace speeds. All I have to do is look at my watch. Now, we don't have to be so accurate with that if it takes us 11 minutes and 43 seconds to get somewhere, we can't just say 12 minutes. It's very simple, okay? We just round up or round down, over 30, under 30, and we don't worry about it from there. And most people are going to be fairly close to that. And if we use other things on this list as well, then we're going to make that even more accurate for people. Now, waypoints and controls could be anything from a major terrain feature to just something that's easily noticeable while you're walking the route. It could be an inordinately large tree that's close to the trail. It could be a creek crossing that crosses the trail. It could be a certain terrain feature like a rock outcropping that you can see very visibly from the trail that you're walking. All of those things can be waypoints and controls, as well as points that you could stop to make a specific time management waypoint or control for yourself on the route. So if I'm walking down a route and I'm 15 minutes into my route, but I haven't gotten to the end yet, but at 15 minutes I cross a large ravine of some sort, then I can say 15 minutes in, there's a ravine. And if someone else is walking that route and they've walked 15 minutes and haven't seen the ravine, they know they have to go a little further, but they're probably close. If they haven't gone the 15 minutes, they're probably not going to see the ravine. But if they see the ravine at 14 minutes or 13 and a half minutes, then at least they know by a control point on the route sketch, they've made it to that waypoint or that control, and they can start things over again from there and ignore that they were 1 minute and 30 seconds early on that particular waypoint. Sounds a little confusing, but it's very, very easy. Now, simplistic azimuths are really another thing that we want to talk about. We can make this as complicated as we want to. In this day and age with the compasses that we have, that you can actually shoot visual azimuths and bearings with that are very exact, we can get very exact with those things if it's something that's a terrain feature we're looking off at in the distance. Could be a hilltop or something like that. As I said, a rock outcropping of sorts. But it doesn't have to be that complicated. In the old days, the compasses just had north, south, east, west, the subcardinal directions, and some of the better ones had degree readings around them. Although it's going to be different if you're using a general old school type compass that had no bezel ring, because the degree readings are not going to be the same as they would be on a modern day compass or an engineering style compass that actually had a movable bezel ring, so that as you move the bezel ring, it changed the degrees that were at the top of your compass. Those degrees are not going to change the same way. I'm going to show you an example of that right now. So in a newer style compass, we have a movable bezel ring, okay? And if we hold our compass out and we point it at an object, and we're actually shooting a bearing looking through the gun sight, as we talked about in other videos, the next thing we're going to do is we're going to put our needle in the doghouse. And this movable bezel ring changes the degree reading at the top of the compass to give us a travel bearing. In this case, 74 degrees, somewhere in that neighborhood, okay? We're straight ahead of us now. That's not going to be the same on an old school compass, and I'll show you that. Now this one is an old school World War I compass, okay? And we open it up, we hold north in front of us, and the degree reading that we're going to get is going to be much different without moving a bezel ring and rotating it toward the north arrow. So the reading on the bezel ring that the compass arrow is pointing to, the magnetic north arrow, is the degree reading that we put on our route sketch. And it's going to be much different than if we had moved the bezel ring and we're reading the number at the top. As long as we're using the same measurement device every time, it's not going to change. If someone uses a different type compass than this, or the compass that we used on our route sketch, that changes everything. So the measurement system has to stay the same. Okay, so the next thing we need to look at really is the scale of our route sketch. And really that can be dependent on how much paper you have to work with. Now, generally speaking, just a notebook like this, the size of your pocket, something like a moleskin, Write in the Rain, anything like that will work, but you want that thing to be grid paper, all right? And the grid paper is important because that allows you to match scale very easily without having a measuring device. So in this notebook, I go with 1 square per minute, which gives me about 20-25 minutes of space here in this direction and about 15 minutes in this direction. That's good enough for me for something like the trap line, where 20 minutes walk out is about as far as I need to go to get the amount of traps out that I'm working with. So I can do a simple route sketch using that scale, and it works. Your scale is really up to you. It could be 1 square equals 10 minutes, in which case you could walk for 2 or 3 hours and still stay on a small notebook like this. However, remember that the larger your scale is, the less detail you're going to be able to get on your map. In other words, if I go 1 square for every 5 minutes of walking, I'm not going to be able to get the detail in that small space that I can if 1 square is 1 minute of walking. So you need to remember that when you're setting this up. And then when you transfer it over, you can adjust that scale up on a different piece of paper if you'd like to. Reference notes. Reference notes are something you should have on the opposite page. So your route sketch is on one page, your reference notes on the other. They could be as simplistic as what type of traps you have, things that you observed along the way, key features of places that you've shot azimuths to and things like that, so that they're easily recognizable by someone else who may be using that route sketch. Anything like that that's an important reference or resource that you may have found at a certain point, you may want to keep track of that. So a reference page is always a good thing to have, just like you keep a travel log when you're doing pole mapping, and the last column is basically notes or remarks. It's the same thing. I'm going to show you what I've done for a simple route sketch of a trap line to kind of walk through that with you in a few minutes. So that takes us through the big 5 bullet points here for pathfinding and route sketching. Time as a measurement device, controls and waypoints, simplistic azimuths, scale, and then reference notes. So let's look at my map real quick, and I'll show you a simple route sketch. All right, so this is the area of our route sketch, and we've got traps down this pipeline up to that area where I've got the tiles marked on my route, which you'll see in a few minutes. I also have some traps off in the wood line over here, just about 4 minutes down the walk, that I don't have on the map yet, that I'll be putting on the map later today. But I wanted to get this out and show you this system today because it's a very valid system, and I think you'll enjoy it. Okay, so here's a very simple route sketch. Okay, you can see that there's notes on this side annotating a couple things like a rock outcropping, a culvert that's made of metal, and cement tiles that are on this route sketch. You can see it starts at the cut to the pipeline, so I have a known point of origin. Each one of these squares is 1 minute, that's marked up here. And then minutes are marked along the route. So it's 5 minutes to the first water crossing, and there are 2 traps there. There's a culvert pipe marked here at about 5, 6, 7 minutes, and that's annotated here. At 13 minutes, at an azimuth of 285 degrees, you can see a rock outcropping, and from that point, there is a Minnesota brand 450 in that trail on the pipeline. And up from that, you have some cement tiles on a water crossing, and that's about 20 minutes out. And there are 2 120 body grips there and 1 450 Minnesota brand just past that at about 21 minutes. That's a simple route sketch and as simple as it gets, but anyone could pick that up and go find where those traps are set if they were walking this line. All right, guys, listen, I appreciate you joining me out here today for another video, and this video about pathfinding and route sketching as described by Horace Kephart. I appreciate your views. I appreciate your support. I thank you for everything you do for our school, for our family, for our business, all of our sponsors, instructors, affiliates, and friends. And I'll be back with another video as soon as I can, guys. Thank you.